Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land. I'm Raylene Marks, your host, with today's top story. Yesterday came the shocking announcement by the chief of the United Nations Human Rights Committee, Michelle Bachelet, when she announced the blacklist of 112 companies operating in the disputed territories of the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, whatever you prefer to call them. Now, these are companies that are not exclusively Israeli. These are companies from other countries like France and the United States. And what this blacklist proposes is a possible boycott of these companies. Now, this plays right into the hands of the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, who would prefer that boycotts of any companies in Israel take place, and are very, very anti-normalization and any kind of interaction between Israelis and Palestinians. And what is also extremely concerning is that the resolution that was voted in March 2016, which would see the eventual creation of this blacklist, was put forward by countries like Bolivia, Venezuela, Pakistan, and various others that do not enjoy great human rights. So one wonders why the UN Human Rights Council are so obsessed and so focused on the state of Israel at the expense of other conflicts in other countries where there are great human rights transgressions around the world. On the blacklist are companies like banks, companies like Motorola, Airbnb, and various others. Now, we've heard, of course, a very, very strong reaction from the Israeli side. In fact, it was announced earlier today by Israel's foreign minister that Israel will be freezing all ties to the UN Human Rights Council, and it is expected to draw the concern of many other countries, including countries like Austria, who have said that they will not vote against Israel at any United Nations gathering, and singled out the UN for their obsession and almost their anti-Semitic nature of this kind of obsession. Yesterday, Israel's President Reuven Rivlin commented by saying that this takes us back to the darkest time in our history. And he was, of course, alluding to the period just before the Holocaust, where Jews were singled out, blacklisted, forced to wear the yellow star, businesses were looted and boycotted, and this feels like a horrible, horrible repetition of history. And the leader of the Kahol V'Levan, Benny Gantz, saying that this is a dark day for human rights, and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that we will fight this with all our might. And the general consensus, even though we are just before an election period, the general consensus is that we will do everything in our power to protect these companies. And while this drama is going on, we have somewhat of a paradox. The Arab world is, I would say slowly but surely, but it seems to be more rapidly now, opening up to the prospects of doing business with Israel. And this is why moves like this by the United Nations are so concerning, because there is such positive forward momentum. Why do something like this? All it does is play into the hands of the haters and the anti-Semites. But countries like the United Arab Emirates, they seem to think differently. And a very, very prominent UAE businessman said yesterday that he sees absolutely no reason for there not to be any investment by Israel into the UAE. In fact, they would welcome it greatly. And in response, one of the heads of Israel's largest fund management company, Altri, responded by saying, "You know what? I'm here to help you make it happen, and I will happily convince backers from Europe and Israel to invest in the UAE." And we're of the opinion that this is the positive way that we can affect regional change and improve the lives of everybody in the Middle East through positive moves like this and through normalization and interaction. Moving more further afield, and this time to Japan, yesterday Israel's foreign ministry appealed to the Japanese authorities to please allow for the evacuation of Israelis not affected by coronavirus off the quarantined Diamond Princess cruise ship, which is still moored off the coast of Japan because it's still in quarantine. A few days ago, we heard that there was possibly 2 Israelis affected with the coronavirus. The Japanese authorities have refused this request, and what is very interesting is Israel's foreign minister has defended the Japanese decision. So it's very interesting. On the one hand he asks, and on the other hand he totally understands it, but there is concern that Israeli passengers are receiving kosher food and enough medicine, and we will keep you up to date with all progressions of the Diamond Princess that is currently in quarantine and the status of those Israelis on board. So these are the top stories making headlines in Israel. I think the United Nations story is one we're going to follow for quite a while, and look out for some content about that up on our website next week. But in the meantime, you can check us out at www.layoftheland.online. You can read Dave Kaplan's article, just a word of advice to the Palestinians from Saudi Arabia, saying you better move on peace before it's too late. And don't forget to check out our Facebook page. We are growing daily, and we would love you to be a part of it. So while you're there, give us a like, give us a follow, share our content, invite your friends. And don't forget that Fridays we are somewhere in the country, so come along, wish us Shabbat Shalom. And not to forget that we also have a YouTube channel at the Israel Brief. Simply click on the subscribe button and you will be notified every time we post a brief. So after a long and busy week, Areli marks with the Thursday edition of the Israel Brief. I wish you all a peaceful and restful weekend. And from right here in Modi'in in the center of the country, Shabbat Shalom.